I want to get to my guest. Scott Adams is with me. He is the creator of the comic strip called Dilbert, a popular office themed cartoon with smart humor. He's the author of the book How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. When my producer told me about this book, I had to have it. I got it. I was reading it over the weekend. Uh, Very interesting book, folks. We're going to tell you how to get it, all right? Scott predicts that Trump will be our next president. We showed you the video of Scott talking about Trump and why he believes that Trump will be the next president of this great nation. Scott, good morning, sir. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It's an honor to meet you. I have a lot of questions for you.
Okay.
My first question is, how did you come to understand things the way you understand them and see them in the way that you see them? How did you get to that point in life?
Well, probably the same way everybody does, which is it's some combination of the forces that you had no control over, and then the things that you chose to learn. In my case, I learned hypnosis. I learned to become a trained hypnotist in my 20s. And that formed in me what I call the moist robot philosophy. The idea that our bodies are, for the most part, programmable. There are things that we can do to actually create habits in them, for example, and get better results. So I'm a little bit more focused philosophically on what you can do to the body, which will give you a result in your mind that you want, as opposed to the standard way, which is somehow you can directly work with your mind through willpower and self-control and free will and stuff like that. And I think that is a way to look at the world that is just less effective.
And so, as a result of being a hypnotist, you came to understand this?
Well, so that I would say that was my biggest influence in terms of understanding people as programmable objects. Because when you're a hypnotist, you're literally changing what people are thinking in real time. And the experience of actually seeing that and doing it in the immediate, moment is so strong that it's hard to see people as rational beings anytime after that. So I see people as somewhat irrational, people who rationalize after they make decisions.
Yeah. And speaking of hypnosis, is it possible that we as human beings could be hypnotized in a negative way and not know it?
Well, when I use the word hypnosis, I use it in a more broad way than most people do. So I would include in that anything that influences anybody, any form of persuasion, argument, politics, advertising, marketing, right to the strongest forms of brainwashing, I guess would be the extreme.
Right.
So to me, hypnosis is all of the ethical stuff that's in the middle that people are doing every day. And you're usually aware of it. When you see an advertisement, they're trying to influence you. The salesperson's trying to influence you. That right now, you and I are trying to influence the listeners to have a good experience. So
Yes.
everybody's influencing. It's not all evil. It's just some is better than others.
So what you do is fix the body in order to fix the mind, right?
Yeah, in a sense. So let me give you the specific, some examples there. I'm a stepdad. When I first came into contact with kids, my ex-wife now, said, "Hey, those kids are acting up because they're just hungry." And I would look at them and I would say, "That's impossible. It's not just hunger. They're going crazy. They're not listening. Nothing's right." And she would say, "Just watch." And she would give them, some mac and cheese or whatever. They would sit down, they would eat it, and their personalities would completely transform, at least for a while. And I would watch this happen time and time again. And I would look for other examples in which fixing your brain or fixing your body just change your brain. The best example is when you're tired. You ever notice that when you're tired, your environment seems to have lots of problems?
Yes. Scott doesn't see things the way the average person would see it. And in reading his book, he seems to be freer that way. And I really want people to be free. And in that way, you can succeed at anything or most anything, at least you want to do. Scott, you were giving us an example of how changing your body will fit. I mean, how changing your body will fix your mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the example I gave is when you give food to kids, often it'll calm them down. But if you can observe with yourself that if you, let's say you're in love and you've had a great experience with your partner recently, usually things don't bother you for like 24 hours after you've had this great, connection with another person.
Right.
Likewise, if you've had a good night's sleep, if you've eaten the right foods, if you've taken care of your body. And so my observation was that humans have almost a user interface in the sense that our buttons are very clearly labeled. You put the good food in, you put the exercise in, you put the sleep in, you're nice to people. I mean, the rules are pretty fairly well laid out, fairly clear, fairly unambiguous. If you do these things, you get a good sense of mind. Now, of course, that's not going to help you if you've got a organic mental illness or something. But you want to start with the best base you can.
Your book, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. Explain to folks, what do you mean by that?
I counted up the number of just business-related things I had tried in my life that didn't work, and I got a list of, I think, 36 different things. And it was everything from buying real estate high and selling low to 2 restaurants I started that didn't work, 2 corporate careers, several inventions. I tried writing software, building companies, tried a number of things. The Dilbert comic strip was the one thing that worked. So that sort of set it apart. But what I talk about in the book is not the obvious notion that if you keep trying, you're more likely to get lucky. Everybody knows that. Everybody's been taught as a kid,
Right.
Get back on the horse. That's sort of the obvious thing. I go further to say that you should choose your projects with the assumption that they're probably not going to work out, but you want to choose a project that leaves you personally more valuable, even if the thing you're doing didn't work. So, for example, I would always choose business things that I would learn a whole bunch. I would meet the right kind of people. I would, network. So I would always come out the other end with a whole bunch of capabilities I didn't have going in.
Right.
And ultimately, it was the combination of those things which made me a cartoonist, which I had never really planned from the beginning. But when you layer together the fact that I can draw, I have a little bit of art skill, but nobody would ever call me an artist. As cartoonists go, I have the worst art skill of any, I think. And I didn't go to school to learn how to write, but I can write well enough for cartooning and for blogging, apparently. And I know a little bit about business. I
Yeah.
went to, have a business background, business education. So you start laying together some skills that are really maybe top 20%, nothing extraordinary, just things that I focused on that other people haven't focused on. So therefore I got in the top 20% just by brute force and practice. But none of those were individually important. But when you layer them together, there are very few people you can name who are pretty good at writing, pretty good at drawing, have pretty good sense of humor, and know quite a bit about business, but they're not Warren Buffett. You put all that stuff together, and plus my knowledge of technology helped me do a lot of things that other cartoonists couldn't do early on to kind of leverage my capabilities. So the message is that you should play the odds, which I call more of a systems approach to life, as opposed to having some specific goal and saying, I'm going to do only the things I need to get to that specific goal 5 years out. In the old days, that probably made sense because things didn't change much.
Right. Yeah.
Right? 5 years from now, look just like today, give or take a beaver pelt or whatever you were doing. But today, there's more complexity in your pocket. Your cell phone has more decisions in it than the farmer had in his entire operation 100 years ago. So if you're trying to, hit a moonshot target in this kind of environment, your odds are not as good as they might have been in the past. So today, what you want to do is improve your value in a world where lots of opportunities are swirling around you all the time. Things are changing.
Yeah.
So the odds of your value matching up with an opportunity in that ever-changing, growing, complicated environment, that's the thing you're trying to maximize.
Do you have fear?
You know that I heard you talking about that before I came on. I love that topic. I have found in my life that every time I released my fear, almost immediately good things happened. Because,
Amen. That's right.
because almost every time the fear was the problem and not the problem. And you don't, that's the sort of thing that it's hard to communicate. It's in that category of things which you and I could tell people about this all day long, but you actually have to do it for whatever reason you did it. Your own personal reasons. You're just forced into it. In my case, I've had a few situations, and not good situations, where I just said, "All right, I'm just done." Right?
Yes.
I don't care if I live or die.
Yes.
Right? And when you do that, you just say, "But I never lost my curiosity." And here's a little trick you might want to think about. There are times when your life just is like, okay, there's just no reason to go on. Everything here is just messed up. You have at that moment a superpower. You have the superpower of being somewhat risk-free because you've already given up.
Yeah.
So that's the moment you could say to yourself, why don't I just call that person I was afraid of calling?
Yeah.
Just to find out, just out of pure curiosity. And I could tell myself this is the day before I die. I could tell myself it's the last day on earth, because in fact, you get to make that decision every day, right? Every day you wake up, you can decide whether to live or die. We all have that power. So you can say to yourself, well, the world wasn't working the way it was, so I give up on the world. Hey, it's the last day of my life. I think I'm going to call that person I wasn't going to call. I think I'm going to embarrass myself for going for that job that was more than I think I could handle. I'm going to promise to do something that I normally wouldn't have because it seemed like it was too much. I'm going to express, love for somebody that probably doesn't love me back, because nothing good can, they're not going to send anything back.
Yeah.
I'm going to do something without expecting reciprocity because I'm going to be dead tomorrow. I mean, maybe, right? So it's really just a state of mind. So a lot of times, your point is exact. The losing fear is a superpower. I could tell you, I'll give you a specific example, right? In my 20s, I had no luck dating. I just, I was young. I didn't know many people. I had a terrible personality. I had no money. I didn't have anything. I didn't have a good car, nothing. So one day I just said, I'm done. I'm just giving up.
We'll pick up on this, man. This is so good. If you want to succeed in life, I suggest you pay attention to what Scott Adams is saying here. And I recommend his book. I have it. Two other people have it in my office. Andre is going to get it now that he has heard about it. Scott is the creator of the comic strip called Dilbert, Dilbert. It's a popular office-themed cartoon with smart humor. His book is How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. He predicted that Trump will be our next president. We're going to get to that in a minute. You were talking about fear and how sometime back you were not able to get a date, and you were telling us what happened. You remind me of my producer, James. He still can't get a date, so maybe this will help.
Well, so what happened was I said to myself, well, I'm going to forget about directly trying to date. I'm just going to work on myself. And I was working on a side business, and I was going into work, my place of my day job at night and on weekends to just work on my own project because I didn't have a computer at home in those days. It's hard to believe. And so going there, giving up on dating, I found out that there was one other young woman who had given up on dating who was doing exactly the same thing. And the two of us were alone in this big building. And the next thing you know, we were dating. So, and of course, these are just anecdotes. They don't prove anything. But
yeah.
Time after time, when I sort of say, all right, I'm going to stop kind of obsessing and trying so hard over something. Likewise, when I did my speaking career, the beginning of it, before you put yourself in front of a crowd and try to be funny, the scariest thing one could ever imagine, you have to just release on fear.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
I love it when you say when you let fear go, everything is right there. It's easy. It's like fear blocks everything. You can't really see clear. The last time I had fear was 27 years ago. I was in my late 30s, and I had to go and tell my mother I resented her for what she had done to me as a child. And fear just overwhelmed me, Scott. And once it was dealt with her, I let it go. I've not experienced fear since then.
wow. Yeah, I mean, it should be said that there are things you should really be afraid of, if
Yeah.
you're in a dangerous neighborhood or something.
Right. I
But
have, I'm concerned. I know, like physical
right,
things you should be
yeah,
aware
but
of. Yeah.
I would say the fear of embarrassment or the fear of failure are the two that just aren't real and
Yeah.
are preventing most people from a better life.
You talk about in your book. You talk about simplicity, and you gave an example how your wife was complicated, where you believe in simplicity. Explain that to the folks.
Yeah, I divided the world into optimizers and simplifiers. My wife, my ex-wife now, is an optimizer, meaning that if she's going to do one errand, she'll figure out how to accomplish five things and make a phone call and get six things done. Now, quite often, I would say 80% of the time, it actually works, and she gets way more done than a human could ever do. It's really impressive. But about 20% of the time, everything goes wrong. And so I choose philosophically the simplifier's role
Yeah.
because also in my world maybe 20% of things go wrong, but the difference is I'm not insane when it's happening.
Yeah.
My
That's
life is
right.
my life is controlled. I've got a better quality of life, so my simple life also reveals more opportunities. I don't because I'm not caught up in the moment of my brain isn't 100% engaged and making juggling all the balls at once and stuff. So I probably hit the same rate of success with simplifying as the
Y-
optimizers do,
yes.
but I have some resources left over.
I have to yell at members of my staff at times because when there's a project to do, rather than just keeping it simple and just go do the project, they make it complicated and it takes forever to do it. When had you just gone and taken care of that, it would be over with. And you can move on to whatever else that you need to do.
Yeah, in the world of startups, where I spend a lot of time now, I've got a startup I'm working on, and I live in the heart of startups near Silicon Valley here. So in the startup world, there's a saying. I think Reid Hoffman, billionaire Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, was the one who said it. He said that if you're not embarrassed by your first version, the software people are saying, if you're not embarrassed, you waited too long. Because it's in the software world, you throw it up literally bad. You do the bad version, you let people beat it up, and then you fix it quickly. And there's a lot of logic to that. I read about this in the book as well. If you think about the things in life that have become huge trends that change society, they were always popular even when they were terrible. And the example of that would be the first cell phones. You couldn't make a call on a cell phone. They were terrible. They
Yeah.
were they're big as a brick, right? But everybody wanted one, and
Yeah.
there was no limit to how much people wanted. The first fax machines, in fact, the current fax machine, it still doesn't work half of the time, right? And in its day, it was literally necessary.
Yeah.
The first cars, how terrible were the first cars? But still, the airplanes, how terrible are airplanes? The flight, air travel is terrible, but they're still popular. So one of the ways you can tell if something's worth doing is if it's popular, almost irrationally, in its terrible form.
Yeah.
That's the way I knew that Dilbert would work out. Unlike the other things which I tried that failed in my life, is that Dilbert originally was just terribly drawn, wasn't funny. If you looked at it today, you would say, how in the world did that ever become popular? Looking at its first version,
Right.
and the answer is nobody knows. There was some kind of X factor thing about it that made it popular when it was bad, and that there's nothing that's a better predictor than it's popular while it's bad. Here's another
Uh,
example. Look, here's another example. Look
uh,
at, probably not your genre, but hip hop music, for example. If you looked at the first rappers who were just sort of talking, it was the terrible version of
yeah.
what it has grown and evolved, and it's matured, and it's often combined with pop music, and now it's its own, I would say, pretty amazing art form.
I'm totally, totally inspired and having a good time. I started on the book over the weekend, and I knew this would be good. Um, Scott, we're running out of time here. I do want to just ask you just a few questions. And you list priorities in the book and things that we should prioritize. Oh, first, what are you looking at out of the window there? Are you looking out of the window during the break?
I was looking at my computer, but it's California and a perfect sunny day out there.
Oh yeah. You list in your priorities. You list health as number one, and why is that?
Well, the mind is driven by the state of the body first, right? So it can't really concentrate on doing anything good for anybody else unless it's first taking care of itself. So, in terms of priorities, I promote sort of a enlightened selfishness, and by that I mean that if you see your life as this progression from being 100% selfish as a newborn baby, as you should be and as you must be, you need people's help to survive. As you become a teen, you learn to do a few chores for yourself, hopefully more than that. And as you become maybe a parent, as is often the case, you become really about the kids.
Yeah.
Your priorities change. And then in a perfect world, I suggest that by the time you leave this mortal world, there's nothing left to give. That you've transformed from a perfectly selfish creature to one who is literally giving away the last of your possessions, the last of your knowledge, the last of what you could teach, just before your last breath.
Yeah.
And that would be, and now obviously it's a standard, and not everybody has the ability or even desire to reach the standard in the same timing. But as a ideal, if you're moving toward a world of being less selfish at whatever rate makes sense to you in your situation, I think you got to respect that.
I need a short answer to this because I want to get to the Trump thing next, and I could go on and on with these kind of questions. You believe in God,
I'm not a believer.
and what's your idea? What's your ideal stand about God?
I think that the human brain is probably not equipped to understand nature. That rather, we probably have brains that are designed to do nothing more than uh, ensure our survival, and that it may not know more than that. So I
I
think that,
totally agree with that, Scott. 100%. I was just talking about it yesterday at a meeting.
and so that's the reason that you and I could be at the store buying groceries, standing shoulder to shoulder. Maybe I believe that my prophet went to heaven on a flying horse. You've got an entirely different set of beliefs, but we're both buying vegetables, we're both eating, we're both surviving, but our filter of the world is completely different.
Yeah.
Take, for example, my filter that we're mostly moist robots, and it's cause and effect that's driving things is completely different than what I imagine most people's filter is, that there's sort of a soul or a Holy Spirit or something that's sort of motivating everything, and the body follows from that energy. Um, the truth is, we can both get in a car and we can both drive down the street on the same set of highway rules, and we don't interfere. But we're not really living in the same dimension. It doesn't seem.
Yeah.
So I borrow from Einstein's view that there's no preferred observer in science, meaning in physics. If one person is moving near the speed of light and the other isn't, one of them isn't right, but they are in fact experiencing completely different realities. It's just different observers have different observations. I think that might be the case with humans. I just don't think that we have the ability to get to truth. We have the ability to get to a filter that keeps us alive.
Very interesting. Trump, you believe that Donald Trump is going to win, become the next president. Very interesting video that I saw of you explaining that. Tell the folks why you believe Donald Trump will become the next president.
Yeah, first let me say that I'm not a supporter of his policies per se. I'm not a
Right.
political view. I'm just using my background in hypnosis and a lifetime of studying persuasion as a skill. And he has the best persuasion skills I've ever seen.
I know.
Let me tell you where he gets them. Well, for one, he wrote the book on negotiating, literally. So he knows that. He
Yeah.
says he knows psychology. He's proving it every moment of this campaign. He's essentially controls Fox News and CNN at this point. He has taken over the Republican Party. So what he's saying about psychology and negotiating and leverage and knowing how to use these things, he's demonstrating. But he also comes from, and this might interest you, do you know who his minister was when he was 6 years old, I think, in Queens?
I don't.
Norman Vincent Peale, who wrote The Power of Positive Thinking.
Oh, yeah.
He was a disciple of Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich, who was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie, richest man in America, who asked this author to talk to his rich friends and find out what was different about them. Hill's idea was it was something about how they, thought of things or approached things. Norman Vincent Peale went further to the positive thinking, and you'll make the world a better place. And if you look at Trump, he seems to have blended the schools of hypnosis that he probably gets through Tony Robbins, same types of influences that I have, negotiations that he's developed on his own, and then the whole positive thinking Norman Vincent Peale, which is terribly persuasive with people. If you look at how he talks, Trump says, think of this image. It's big and it's beautiful. It's, even if you disagree with the policy, you see a big wall, you see eagles and flags and everything.
Yeah.
So he's very persuasive.
That is so smart. I have never thought of a wall around the borders in the sense that I think of it now until Trump came about. I don't know. I guess I had this image of a little fence or something around the border. I'll be back. Hold on. I do want to tell you folks, I didn't really get into the list of priorities with Scott because of the limited time, but the idea that health should be number one is absolutely true, because if you don't have your health, you have nothing. You can't function. So it just makes sense that you should be in good health and everything else would follow. Scott, I want to just squeeze in a couple calls here. Give me a yes or no. Do you still believe that Trump will become the president?
I believe he'll win the entire thing in a landslide, yes.
Wow. Let's go out to Memphis, Tennessee and talk to Perry. Perry, good morning, sir. We have about 2 or 3 minutes left here. You're on with Scott.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, Scott.
Hi.
I'm a big fan of Dilbert
Thanks.
and the pointy hair balls, but I love the dog the best, though.
I hear that a lot, too.
Yeah, I love the dog. Yeah, man, I've been following you for years, man. And you tripped me out about Donald Trump. I took this thing called isidewith.com, and it came up, I sided with Donald Trump 83%.
Huh.
Well, good,
Yeah,
man.
and those books you say he read, I read them too. Yeah, man. Shoot, and man, I'm thinking I'm liking Donald Trump more and more.
And do you recognize his technique, his persuasive technique?
Yeah, they say he acts like he's still on a talk show. I mean, excuse me, what's that?
Reality?
Field show.
Yeah, Apprentice. They say he act like he's still on Apprentice, but man, he's tearing these reporters up, though. That's what I like about it. And then this what trips me out, Scott. How can a reporter tell you how to be a president? A reporter. That's what really burns me up.
Hold on, Perry. Let him respond real fast.
Yeah, you're reminding me of my favorite moment when CNN reporter was asking Trump where he gets his information about international events, and he was trying to embarrass him by showing he doesn't really study. And he said he gets it from CNN. It was the most perfect experience. The best answer you could have ever given.
Yeah.
It is. I like it, man. Thanks, man.
All right. Thank you, Perry. Scott, we're going to have you back because there was more callers for you, but we just don't have time for it. But I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Jess. And thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. All right, folks, get the book, all right? Have a good day, and thank you for tuning in and calling in. I appreciate it.